Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, May the 21st. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get the week off to a flying start. That requires your participation. So if you're in the St. John's Metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance 1-888-590-VOCM. which is 8626. So hopefully you had the opportunity to enjoy a long weekend if you were lucky enough. We'll get into some long weekend related matters here now in a second, but where should we start? Darts, of course. So Autumn Kennedy is from this province, and over the weekend she captured the Canadian Junior Girls National Championship. Now, I don't know what double she was going for to finish it off, but she stepped up to the line and on her first throw, bang, whatever that double was, she got it, and she's the national champion, National Junior Girls Champion. So congratulations to Autumn Kennedy. That is pretty cool stuff. So when you think of darts in this province, lots of good players have come from here. And not to leave anybody out, but Albert Anstey, John Norman, Amy Earle, and now Autumn Kennedy on her way to becoming a senior champion. Good for her. All right, let's check in at the Men's World Ice Hockey Championships over in Czechia. So we remain undefeated. First place in Group A. Dawson Mercer scored again there over the weekend. The good news about Mercer might have been an empty net, but to have the faith of the coaches to be on the ice at the end of the close games, that's a couple of games now where they've been in tight ones, and Mercer's been out there to pot a couple empty netters. All right, we got Czechia today, real test. And stayed up a bit too late last night to watch the Edmonton Oilers beat the Vancouver Canucks in Game 7. Nothing quite like a Game 7. So the Oilers move on. And there hasn't been a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup since 1993. I wonder, do people just latch on to a Canadian team or just cheer for wherever you want to cheer for? Anyway, go get them, Edmonton. And now it's official. Katerina rocks on. 16 years later, we'll be going to our 5th Paralympic Games, this time in Paris. I mean, brilliant stuff. You know, in the world of para swimming, and this will be the most decorated Paralympian in the female swimmers for Katerina, 5 games. So she swam a B standard, and then later on she swam an A standard. If you swim a B standard, you're called nominated to be on the team, and then Canadian Swimming will choose who will represent the country. But she swam an A in the evening, so the Pride of Kippens going to her 5th Olympic Games, one of her very best of all time. And last week we told you about the fact that there was a lady named Tyson Bukaboom who was set to get her 68th cap playing with Canada's national rugby team, female rugby team. And so she did exactly that when they took on New Zealand in New Zealand over the weekend. And then lo and behold, Canada beats New Zealand. They were down 14-3, come back to win 22-19. So they're now the New Zealand were the reigning Pacific Force Series and Rugby World Cup champions, and we took them out for the first time in our history. So congratulations to the Canadian women. That is a huge feat. And Canada, where are they ranked in the world? Number 2. The highest they've been ranked since 2016. But on the men's side, we're not even a Tier 1 nation, you know, when we talk about competitiveness. But Canada, number 2 in the world. That's unbelievable stuff. All right, had to spend a brief stint on the highway yesterday, like many. And boy, it sure looked like people were in a hustle to get back to the Northeast Avalon. I mean, you never know what to say. The police were out there, and there were some speed traps and the like set up. But you can only hope that more and more speed cameras are installed. I know I'm in the minority, but I'm going to stick with it. The example is clear. From last summer, over the course of 3 months, 94,000 warnings were sent out. And yesterday I didn't see any headlines regarding any serious incidents on the highway, which is great news, and or on the water, terrific news. But anyway, it was madness out there. And here we go. I think I heard Brian Medore during the newscast talk about the pending cleanup on the Outer Ring Road. Certainly that's required. And here comes peak tourism season. Even if you just want to spread a very quick PSA about cleanups coming up in your community or your neighborhood, I can help spread it on the Facebook or on Twitter, or a quick call. We can talk about it because the place really is embarrassingly dirty. You want to take it on? We can do it. All right. And I guess there's a tourism conference here in the city too. So if any of those operators would like to give us a shout, talk about some of the challenges and some of the positive momentum we've enjoyed in the last couple of years. Let's do exactly that. Okay. So today, advanced polling opens for the Bay-Vert-Green Bay by-election. So it opens up at 8 a.m., goes to 8 p.m. It's at the College Building in Springdale, the Community Centre in Roberts Arm, the Kin Centre in Lassie, and the Royal Canadian Legion in Bay-Vert. And now, so there's some comments drawing attention coming from the PC candidate Lynn Paddock during the Chamber of Commerce debate last Thursday. And this is all about recruiting doctors. So the question was not about immigration. It was very specifically, what would you do when it comes to recruiting doctors? Mr. Paddock's comments, whether or not they were just poorly worded, or I don't know what's going on in Mr. Paddock's head or heart in these quiet moments, but let's just talk about it for a second. So he basically said, as opposed to recruiting doctors in India and Pakistan who will make their way here, and then his assertion is that they would very quickly leave for Toronto. He suggested that maybe we do the recruiting in Germany. Okay. I don't know if there's actually any evidence to support that doctors in particular, because that's what we're talking about here, doctors, are using this province as a springboard to the rest of the country. And I have no earthly idea where this predominant German community here is in the province. I would think there's probably more people from India and Pakistan here than Germany. But anyway, adding to this, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, we are famously mobile. We are famously in search of opportunity and jobs and greener pastures and moving across the country, around the world, all with the hopes of coming home. So at the same time where we worry about where immigrants are going to go, we do it ourselves. So this is, again, if we talk about immigration in general terms, yes, if there's thoughts about the worries in the housing crisis and access to healthcare, these are real challenges, real issues, and we should be talking about it. But this is quite bizarre. Mr. Paddock has apologized. He said to his leader and in a press release that he has no intention to demonize immigrants. And I'm paraphrasing, I'm not going to read the whole thing. But he has apologized, and the apology has been accepted by the leader of the party, Tony Wakeham. So let's look at it. I can't speak for everyone. Of course I can't, and I don't try to. But if I'm in need of a doctor, a family doctor or a specialist, again, just from my own personal stance, if I walk into the room and it's if it's Dr. Daly versus Dr. Patel, I'm just glad to see a doctor. Now, many of you might feel different. I have no earthly idea. And if you want to chime in here, fair ball. Now, the politics of this is very clear as well. Immigration Minister Jerry Byrne, very quick to pounce on the comments, and, did indeed speak to us saying that the racial overtones kind of outweighed any concerns about where an immigrant to the province would land. Okay. It also comes across as a little bit strange in this regard. When the province has reported that they hired 25 new doctors in the first 3 months of 2024 in various disciplines, including family medicine and a variety of specialists, there's also the thought that it came from Munns Med School, domestic recruitment, and internationally. In addition, all 25 doctors had to sign a return and service agreement. So whether or not Mr. Paddock is right or wrong, the fact of the matter is the new doctors that have been hired have signed on for 5 years. So whether or not they want to land in Mississauga, whether or not they want to land in Vancouver, irrelevant for the first 5 years, simply because that is a feature of the recruitment. So you can take it on from whatever angle you choose if you're so inclined today. And let's just separate it out for doctors for a second. Without question, there are legitimate concerns about the population growth and the pace with which the population is growing. And yes, the housing issue is real, and yes, access to healthcare is very real. But there's also a really loud anti-immigrant sentiment growing in the country. I think it's undeniable. I'm not going to go and say Canada's a racist country because I don't believe that to be true. Are there certain segments of society that feel exactly that way? Of course there are. If we look at big scheme of things and numbers and real data that we can latch onto, in this province, whether we talk about recruiting healthcare professionals or immigrants, period, the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for immigrants, whether they be from any part of the world and or people from Canada moving to the Atlantic coast, our birth rates are about half of the death rate. What we cannot have in this province is a steep decline in population given the exorbitant cost to manage 540,000-ish numbers of people living in the province. And add in the aging demographic, which is not a bad thing. I hope to age, hopefully gracefully, likely not, but I hope to age too and be part of that senior sect. So in all regards, immigration, when we talk about things in the broad strokes, very quickly, a growing segment of the population across the country can very quickly be demonized. How do you identify who's an immigrant? I would think, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, I think people would say, okay, this brown person or that black person, very likely an immigrant. And you could be right, but you could be wrong. Also, when you see this person that you think might be an immigrant, you don't know if they are working at Murray's Farm, or they're orthopedic surgeons, or they're plumbers, or they're architects, or they're engineers, and or they're on social services. We don't know. But you could be standing in line at the grocery store. There's the brown person right in front of you who could be third-generation Canadian. The white guy in front of them might have just got off the boat from Ireland yesterday. So we really do, I do think we owe it to each other to have a bit more of a fulsome conversation on immigration. Just because you ask questions does not make you racist. We can't attach labels so quickly that the conversations that are important are stalled or sidelined or stopped in their tracks before they even get going. Quick sip of coffee, 1 second. We're back. Anyway, you want to take it on. Whether it be Mr. Paddock specifically, and yes, he apologised. It was accepted by some, including the leader of his party, and he will remain on the ballot as the PC candidate in Bayvert, Green Bay. Okay. Someone did ask me to bring up the virtual medicine. Now, we did speak very briefly on Friday with Dr. Todd Young from Springdale. Of course, he's behind the Main Street Medical Clinic and Medicuro. And of course, Teladoc was successful in getting the big contract from the government. Someone wants me to put back out there the stories that have been talked about on this program in the past, but it's what kind of information can Teladoc share with others? And the hope is that contract is pretty tight, that disallows Teladoc or anyone that we do business with virtually is sharing or selling our personal information. So I told that person I'd put it out there, and there you go. All right, I must be a glutton for punishment this morning, but here we go. Ontario. The issue regarding vaccination is very clear. Highly contentious, controversial conversation, especially if we only want to focus in on the COVID vaccines and the mRNA technology, which is not like the MMR, the mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine that most everyone listening to the program got. Now, the trends are moving in a very troublesome angle that people aren't getting their kids vaccinated any longer, or certain numbers of people are not doing it. In Ontario over the weekend, a child under the age of 5 died, unvaccinated. Another 5 unvaccinated children ended up in the hospital. If the questions remain, and look, the federal government just put more money in the vaccine injury pot, and yes, compensation has been paid, but that has bled into our thoughts about vaccination at large, including mumps, measles, and rubella. For children who are too young to get vaccinated, they're the most vulnerable. And whether or not we talk about, your natural immunization because you had measles as a child and or you've been vaccinated, or both, that trend seems worrisome to me. I don't know what it means to you, but a kid is dead. The parents made a willful choice not to vaccinate against measles. And now the numbers, over the last decade, there's been about 100 cases reported in Ontario. This year so far, 25. I don't know what you make of that if you want to take it on or talk about it, even though it is difficult. I'm up for it. So we're talking about immigration, racism, and vaccinations all in one morning. Great. All right. Quick update for the folks in the Corner Brook area. Starting tomorrow or today, if you need an ambulance, you have to call 911. It's no longer going to be operated through the Western Memorial Regional Hospital, so 911. And, of course, the government working with more and more communities to incorporate 911 where you live. All right, let's get into the power bills. All right. So last week, the province announced that $2 billion coming from Hydro, the government, over the course of the next 6 years to control the Muskrat Falls rates. Good news. Still our money coming in a different form as opposed from directly from my bank account. But that does not include the fact that there's still some whopping big increases coming based on rate applications from Newfoundland Power. On the 1st of June, or 1st of July, we could very likely, if approved by the PUB, see a 10.5% increase. So yes, the government told us that we're going to be able to control Muskrat Falls. Why? Because the government of the day, the Tories, backed up Muskrat Falls from any oversight at the PUB. So this was the only way the power rates were going to be adjusted or evaluated. So we'll talk about all the different rate mitigation pots of money. That's what people like to call it, rate mitigation. $5 billion federal loan guarantee from the Harper Conservatives, then $3 billion from the Trudeau Liberals, then another $1 billion from the Liberals, and another $1 billion loan. And here's where we are. Inside that world of $5.2 billion, the last announcement, still some remaining confusion about exactly what that means. The $3.2 billion associated with Hibernia, apparently that's the amount that the federal government would take in over the course of, I can't remember how many years, directly from Hibernia, which should be transferred to the province in full, period. But anyway, so the power bills, as much as the Muskrat implication has been controlled somewhat by money that's still ours, foregone dividends or what have you at Hydro, $2 billion over 6 years. The remaining question then would be, after 6 years, then what? I don't know. Dave, how are we doing on the telephone? I got a sore throat. Very quickly. We lead the league in a lot of unfortunate areas in this province, and now add food insecurity to the list. Brutal. 8.5% or roughly, 8.5% of the people in the province are severely food insecure, which basically means they can't buy food. They don't have any money. Going hungry. Whether it be seniors in their home going hungry, kids going to school hungry, those numbers are really startling. And if you look at in large, so 22.9% of people in all 10 provinces lived in a food insecure household in 2023. That amounts to about 8.7 million people, including 2.1 million children, living in households that struggle to afford the food they need. In this province, 26% of the people live in food insecure households. That translates to about 134,000 people. So we know the food insecurity issue. And if you think about it in the big scheme of things, food banks were intended to be a Band-Aid. They were a one-off. They were created to try to help in a very specific period of time. And now they've been the go-to for millions of Canadians all the time. So we have to, have a better and more careful look about the emergency food system, food banks and other not-for-profits that are in that game. So maybe Josh Schmee or anyone else notably out there, Dan Meads or someone who'd like to join us on the program to talk about it, we can do it. Very last one. Questions coming from Jody Wall in the House of Assembly, directed at Housing Minister Fred Hutton, about a very specific issue, is how many people are living in the Comfort Inn? There's no real answer. I don't know if Minister Hutton got back to Mr. Wall with a specific number, but those, when they're such hot-button issues, when the government decides to lease a hotel for 3 years to the tune of $21 million, people have the obvious questions. How's it working? How do we measure success? And how many people are actually living there? We were told in March they would open up the doors and people would start moving into some 100 rooms. It was once a 140-room hotel, but of course, some of those rooms have been converted for other issues like some medical care, addiction services, mental health treatment, or what have you. But how many people are there? And this is not trying to trip anybody up. This is not a gotcha question. This is looking for a very fundamental number. So if that answer is available, how many people are in the Comfort Inn? What type of wraparound services are in place? Have all the staff been hired? What's going on? We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. So we gave a big shout out to Autumn Kennedy, who won the Canadian Junior Girls National Championship of Darts over the weekend. Apparently someone from Lab City also won a title. Colby Burke from Lab City took out a 152 to capture the senior boys title. So congratulations to Colby. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the Vice Chair of Happy City St. John's. That's David Brake. David, you're on the air.
Oh, Paddy. Nice to be on the air again. We are calling in because we want to draw people's attention to the city is about to provide public consultation opportunities on new housing regulations that they put in place. Now, new regulations, or changes rather to the regulations, right? It doesn't sound very exciting, but housing is definitely at a crisis point here in the city. And when we had Happy City have taken a look at the regulations and whether they're going to do what the city needs them to do, which is, or at least intends them to do, which is to make more affordable housing available in the city, because there's a crying need for it.
There is, but there's only one constant in the world, and that's change. But change is also very difficult. So the thought that I hear out there is that some of the density plans and the rezoning and additions, unlike all the focus on a single detached family home, duplexes and triplexes and taller buildings and all the rest, some neighborhoods are going to look and feel different. All the consideration, whether it be with traffic and the like, but there will be some changes to some neighborhoods. Some of the regulations that are being considered, do you want to float them out there, or do you want me to?
Well, I think the main one that seems to be attracting a fair amount of attention, and that we're expected to hear more about, is that fourplexes would be allowed in corner lots in residential neighborhoods where normally there have been single-family units. But there are a couple other detailed comments. We're, as much as anything else, wanting to draw attention to the fact that while some of these things are no longer going to be banned, that it seems to us quite likely that for other reasons, the changes that are in theory going to be enabled may not actually happen. That it's all, rather than getting concerned about what new things might happen, we need to look more carefully at whether any of the intended things would happen, or at least would happen at anything like the rate that it would seem like we need. I was looking at the housing needs report. So just for clarity, Happy City is trying to put together a response to this, to give people an idea not of what the city says it might allow, but really looking at that in the broader context and seeing, well, what might these changes, what might the regulations changes actually trigger? Because when you look at the city's report of what affordable housing needs there are, it seems to imply we need to be adding houses at a rate triple that we've been doing recently over the next 10 years. That's a big ask. It's a big change. And so, yeah, we were looking at the changes and seeing, and tentatively, because we haven't finished doing the digging, it does look like there may not be as much change as people expect.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, and I mean, speed will be of the essence here. So in addition to maybe changing some of the density issues and the type of housing to be built, I mean, the city reported there some while back that we're already $20 million ahead of where we were for building permits of all of last year. So obviously people are interested in getting the building done. We still have some questions about hitting the affordability target. But, the time that it's taken historically here, and not just in this city, but different parts of the province, identify a piece of land, do the engineering work, get the drawings done, hire the contractors, get the house built, has taken far too long. So I think the city has acknowledged that and talking about doing things in a more efficient manner. But the consultations will be important. And when people hear that there's going to be some different changes to their neighborhood, I would imagine there's going to be some interesting conversations.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, we wanted to highlight that tomorrow evening is the only face-to-face public session on the subject before it goes back to council. And the day after will be a virtual session in the evening. They will be taking written submissions up to the 28th. But then it needs to go, those need to be considered by council, then they come back to council. Then, and this is also something that really needs to be looked at. None of this can take place until the province looks over those proposals again and gives it the okay. One of the things that really needs, in the longer term, really needs to get attention is the way that St. John's actions are significantly constrained by what the province will allow it to do. And the province has promised that it's going to be looking at changing the rules around what cities, has already changed the rules around what other communities have been able to do, but they now have to get round to negotiating with the city on giving the city a little more room to make its own decisions without always going back to the province.
Fair enough. Anything else this morning, David, before we take another call?
Just that city regulations are not glamorous. They are complicated. You have to balance safety requirements, what the neighborhood wants, and what the wider city needs. But if we don't get these unglamorous city regulations right, thousands of older people could be trapped in houses they can't live in easily because they don't have the options to go to smaller houses. And the young people who we need to stay and live in St. John's may just be unable, as they already are, thousands of them, they may be unable to live affordably in St. John's. So these are unglamorous. It's kind of difficult to get people's attention on city regulations, but these, once they're set, they stick around for decades. Like the last major changes, the last major set of regulations before these were put together in '94. So we really want people to look at these carefully and to keep looking at this, and keep an eye out for our report, because we're going to put out a public report on it and hopefully shine a light on some of the nitty-gritty of things that need to be done to make it easier to find a house in St. John's in the future.
So I'm assuming the consultations are in the foreign room at City Hall?
That's right, yes.
Okay. David, good to have you on the show.
Ones, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks, sir. The face-to-face ones, yeah, and then on Zoom the following day.
Sounds good. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Bye-bye. It's David Brake. He's the Vice Chair at Happy City St. John's. Look, I mean, I think people understand and realise that we need to build more homes. And don't take it from me, take it from the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. You know, the numbers are a bit overwhelming. They suggest we're going to have to start about 10,000 homes per year over the next 6 years, adding up to 60,000 homes. When it sounds so aspirational, but is it actually manageable? Unlikely. I mean, a banner year in housing starts in this province is around 1,200. Last year there wasn't 1,000. So the leap from 1,200, 1,300 or 1,400 to 10,000 is monumental. Number one, it's easy enough to throw money around at it, but even some of the fundamentals, we're really struggling with a skilled trade shortage. So you add the need to build the homes to some of the big mega projects that might be coming down the pike. So whether that be hydrogen related, or maybe more work at Bull Arm, or maybe the hydrogen plays, or maybe Beta Nord. So we can identify all the needs, acknowledge them, and fund them, but getting it done, different set of circumstances. Let's take a break. When we come back, Sandra's in the queue to talk about Hurricane Fiona. Okay, don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number one. Good morning, Sandra May. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly, and how are you this morning?
I'm very well, thanks. How about you?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. Mr. Daly, I'm calling about the Fiona fiasco, is all I can call it, here in Port aux Basques. As everyone in Newfoundland and Labrador knows, that we in Port aux Basques got hit quite hard with Hurricane Fiona 2 years ago. I was one of the unfortunate people who was removed from their home. My basement flooded and my house flooded. Not the living part of my house, but my basement area of my house did flood. And the biggest problem I have, Patty, is what the government is doing to the people here of Port aux Basques. And it seems like some are being looked after, while quite a few others are being left behind. And I am one of those ones that have been left behind. On September 24th of 2002, my home flooded. I live right next to the playground where they saw the two large dragger boats floating in the playground. So that's actually potentially my backyard. And I was called by the MHA, Minister Parsons, on June the 3rd, and I was told by Minister Parsons that, in fact, my home was being expropriated by the government, and that my home was being taken, only to find out 2 to 3 weeks later that that wasn't true. He was, according to his words, he was misinformed, Minister Parsons. And, you know, we all get misinformed at times, but to be misinformed to that caliber is a little bit something that I'm having trouble dealing with.
Okay, just so I get the timeline straight. So Fiona made landfall September 24th of 2022. You got a call from Minister Parsons last June of 23.
June of 23, because Patty, the first group of people that lost their homes were people who actually, like, for the most part, was homes that were so severely damaged during Hurricane Fiona that they couldn't go back to their homes at all.
Right.
I got probably about 4 feet of water in my basement, and that was sewage water, seawater, the whole nine yards. I am 54 years old. My husband is 67. I am physically challenged. I am on disability. I don't have the physical ability to take those woods and stuff from my basement. I don't have the physical ability to do that. Unfortunately, I refused to sign. Well, not that I refused to sign. I take that back. I wasn't given the opportunity to go to the government and sit and sign any paperwork or anything to get monies to help me repair my basement. And I am not a wealthy woman by any stretch of the imagination. And after Mr. Parsons had told us that our home was being expropriated, of course, we made arrangements to, because my husband is from St. John, so we made arrangements to get a realtor, get a mortgage specialist, and all that to hopefully purchase a home in St. John's, which we know is a very difficult situation as well. Only to find out 3 weeks later that Mr. Parsons informed us that he was misinformed.
Okay, so if he was misinformed, what's the actual reality?
Well, the actual reality is this. There's been nothing done for our property here in Port aux Basques. I just watched last week. I watched the neighbors in my backyard. I watched the gentleman over there. His power lines were being cut. The gentleman down the road, his power lines are being cut because those homes are being taken, because those homes were affected by the same water that flooded my home. Okay? The homes that were across the street from me that were my protection from elements back when they were there, all of them are gone. We have a bowl here of about 4 homes sitting in a little bowl by the playground that have been flooded. And I actually flooded the second time when we had the second storm surge here in Port aux Basques on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. My basement flooded again. So they offered me to take a certain amount of money to repair my basement and so on and so forth. Patty, here's my argument. Why would I take an amount of money from the government to fix my home when on the second storm surge it flooded yet again? Obviously, I am in a very vulnerable zone. I have been told by the government that I am in a low-lying area. I have had more than my share of debris. The Army came here and had to take the debris out of our driveway just so we could get in to get some clothing because there was so much debris in our driveway. It was full. Okay, so we're being left here. And if we're having all of these troubles throughout Newfoundland and Labrador with climate change and things of the sort, so why is the government leaving this, of all the homes they took in Port aux Basques? I bet you, Patty, undoubtedly, I can go through this town and I can find you at least 15 homes that have been being taken by the government that have never seen a drop of water.
So these are, when you say taken by the government, these are homes that have been deemed inhabitable and beyond repair? Or what exactly do you mean?
My love. No. These are homes that have been lived in quite comfortably for the last 2 years and that they've never seen a drop of water during Hurricane Fiona or during any other storm surge. And the government is expropriating those homes, whereas you have people here that have had flooding. There's been 2 storm surges. You can go to Eddie Shear. There's been 2 storm surges forecasted in this Port aux Basques area. One was in September 22nd, I think it was, or 24th, I'm not sure. And the other one was in December 24th. And I flooded with both of them. And here's the clincher of it all. Well, my mental health has suffered significantly. My mental health is in the tube, to say the least. I have a 14-year-old daughter who sleeps with us in the nighttime now in like bad weather situations. So the situation that they've put us in or have left us in here, and I can only speak for myself, is absolutely horrid. But here's the clincher. Last week, Premier Fury stood in the House and said what a wonderful job they did in Port aux Basques. And no doubt about it, during Hurricane Fiona, they did do a good job in Port aux Basques for Hurricane Fiona. But they forgot a few of us. They left us out. They left us behind. And that's not fair. This is not fair. We're sitting here in a bowl. I'm in a bowl by the playground. Anybody who wants to go look, I'm in a bowl. The water came across the street from me. The water came the other way. The water was coming both directions. It splashed. I can show you pictures of where the water was actually waving through the playground that I look out my back window, and it's my backyard. So,
okay.
Minister, and then Premier Fury says they did a great job. So, yeah, they did a great job. They threw a lot of money at a lot of people, but they forgot about the ones that were left behind. Now, I've done everything and anything in my power to help myself and my family with this situation. I've been into Confederation Building. I sat with the Deputy Minister. I sat with Debbie Dunphy. And nope, they still don't think that I'm in a vulnerable situation. So, Patty, tell me how much more vulnerable a person can be.
Well, I can't, obviously.
And then on the top of that, to add insult to injury, what happened 2 weeks ago? Well, I'm going to tell you, Mr. Daly, what happened 2 weeks ago. Okay. I miraculously ended up with a large sum of money in my bank account. How did that happen?
I don't know. I'm not following along with every step of this conversation. So the government, even though you said you were unwilling to accept money, deposited money into your account?
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir. That is exactly what I'm telling you. They deposited over $25,000 in my bank account because I would not accept the fact, because I'm not going to accept the fact that I'm going to take money and repair my basement for the next storm surge to come in and have to tear it out again and then have to do it again on my dime. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't feel that I should have to do that when there are homes that are being expropriated by the government that have never seen a drop of water.
Yeah, and I don't know how to react to that particular issue because I don't know the circumstance about this expropriation or the homes are being taken and what kind of compensation has been afforded. I just don't know.
Oh, the compensation has been absolutely amazing. They're getting anywhere from 200 plus a square foot for compensation for homes here in Port aux Basques. $200 plus per square foot. There are homes here that people paid $40,000 for and ended up with $300,000 and $400,000 for them.
I mean, some of those stories are patently ridiculous. And it should never be.
But I'm going to tell you something, Patty. As sure as God made little green apples, that is a fact. I know for a fact there is one home here in Port aux Basques. I could tell you the name, but I'm not going to. Of course, we're not allowed to do that. But there was one home here in Port aux Basques that I know for a fact they paid $44,000 for the home 5 years ago, and they were awarded $379,000 for it.
Well, I mean, there's probably no home.
Okay.
Oh boy. Okay. All right.
No. Oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry, but this has been ongoing for almost 2 years. And it's I don't begrudge anybody anything that they've gotten. I don't begrudge anybody anything, but it's kind of frustrating when you're sitting here and you're watching the water come into your home, watching it go out of your home, and you're left behind. You're left behind. There's nothing here that they've done for me other than miraculously I was over $25,000 was deposited into my account. When I went to see the deputy minister, Patty, the story is amazing. You would never believe it in a million years. And I'm telling you, I did not know the money was coming to my account. I did not know how much they were willing to deposit. But I do know that when they did send me a letter to say that they had, I'll be honest, Belfour had come out here, or one of the companies had come out here to do appraisals on each home to see how much they were valued at and how much their damage was valued at. As you said in the last conversation that you had with the gentleman about the housing crisis in St. John's, how in the world can I manage to get a contractor here in Little Port aux Basques? There are contractors here that are trying to build homes for the people who actually lost everything that they had, plus people who are being expropriated from their homes as we speak. So how do I find a contractor? So without a contractor, I would be given apparently $25 and change $1,000. But if I needed to get a contractor, they would give me $37,000.
And I mean, I don't know what your basement looks like or what sort of money it would take to bring it back to what it was like before the flooding. But I mean, a few things very quickly before I have to go. People can't even get insurance against sea surge, which has also been part of the concerns out in Port of Basque. So even if folks had home insurance, there was many of the damages were not covered by their own policy. Then it's the whole concept of being paid more than the house is actually worth. Just makes no sense. Like coming up with a number of $200 per square foot. So if you have a regular 1,250, 1,300 foot bungalow, then all of a sudden you're getting $250,000 for a house that you bought for $45,000. So that just patently is absurd. I don't know how anyone can justify that particular issue, whether or not there's some thought that's associated with relocation and the cost that would be to build a new home, because of course what a house is worth is based on what someone's willing to pay me. And there's certainly a difference between buying a home that's already built for $45,000 and trying to build a new home very much like the one you lost. Of course, you're not going to be able to do it for $45,000. You probably can't even repair your basement for $45,000. So anyway, anything very quickly, Sandra, before I do have to go.
Well, Patty, and when we got that water, I had the best insurance package you could get. I had the water. What was it called, John? Water package. Anyways, but because the water was seawater that came in over the land. That's right. I was not covered at all.
Yeah, nobody is.
And nobody is. That's right. But the government is not doing what's right. They have left at least 10 to 15 people behind that have had severe damage in their homes, and they're taking homes that are perfectly fine that have never been touched by water. And I cannot get my head around it. Unfortunately, I can't get my head around it.
We'll see if we can get We will see if we can get the appropriate guests to come on and give us a better understanding about how the process works and some of the houses that have not been.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's it. I'll give you the last couple of seconds before we have to say goodbye, Sandra.
Yeah, but the problem that I see is it's not the homes that were damaged that are the issue. It's the homes that were not.
I heard that part.
Damaged.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I heard that.
And like everybody, water takes its own level. And we are in a low-lying area. We are in a high debris area, but we're not in what they call this miraculous red zone, or this zone, the zone. Because someone in St. John's drew a line around the coast of Port of Basque to say who is in the zone and who is out of the zone. So how can people who have not even been touched by Hurricane Fiona be in a zone, whereas people who have had damage to their properties and their homes are not in the zone?
Point taken. And even communities outside of Port of Basque that were damaged by the exact same storm got very little attention compared to Port of Basque itself, which is also part of the story that's concerned many. Sandra May, I'm going to do whatever follow-up I can, but I appreciate your time. I wish you good luck.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Take care. All right, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Will I get a lost code on here, Dave, before the break? All right, let's go to line number 5. Gary, you're on the air. Hi, Gary.
Oh, Paddy?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Paddy.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I got a little bit of a problem. I moved furniture during the week on a Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, and I'm missing a fanny pack, a leather jacket with kind of a hoodie on it, a cloth hoodie, the hood part of it, the rest is leather, a fanny pack, and possibly a wallet and a cell phone. And when I dial the number, the cell phone cuts in and says your message thing is full. So I'm wondering if anyone picked it up. And a set of keys. One is for belonging to a Honda CRV, and the other one is belonging to a delivery truck from U-Haul that I got full of furniture and is parked in on my dentist's lot. And if I don't find the keys by this evening at 5 o'clock, I got to get her towed into the U-Haul and pay $328 to have a key come in from Halifax, Pathetic.
So where are you in the province? Where was the cult lost?
I'm right here in St. John's, very close to you, Paddy. But This happened up on between 4th Street and Anspach.
Okay, that's what I was getting at, is where was it lost? So 4th Street and Anspach. So it's a coat, leather with a cloth hood, and a cell phone and a wallet and a fanny pack, and there's 2 sets of keys, one for a Honda CR-V, one for a U-Haul rig. If you found it, you just heard Gary's plight. He's going to have to pay $328 to have it towed in the U-Haul and get a replacement key. So if you found it, please call us and we will get you in touch with Gary. How's that?
That's perfect, Paddy. You got my number on the screen, right?
Yeah, we got it.
God bless you, buddy. I hope it works out for me.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thanks,
All right.
Thanks, Gary. All right, there we go. So, folks, someone found that, right? Obviously. Let's get it back to Gary. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Lisa. You're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty. Thank you again for having me on this week. It's very important that our cause gets heard, because here in Northern Labrador, I'm speaking on behalf of Indigenous harvesters of Northern Labrador who are members of the Nunavut government. So, Patty, on May 14th, we released a press release, and we stated out some issues that we were having as harvesters, real concerning issues that would have devastating impacts on our communities in Nunavut and our people, and that's what's so difficult to try to get this out. Like I got to take my time. I have to apologize because there's so much, and we have factual information, we have historical information. We have unity. So, like, at one time, we never had unity with the harvesters. So we could be told one thing and one told another thing. So, like, we couldn't get no headway. But now that we have unity, our information is coming together. So, therefore,
Lisa, before we talk about the unity-related matter, what exactly is going on with the allocation? So I believe this is a communal license. So what exactly are we talking about so people understand?
Yes, Patty, you guide me through, please, because this is difficult. It's heavy, it's emotional, it's disheartening, it's affecting our members.
What changes are happening? What's happening?
And their well-being. So they're trying to take our inshore quotas that are allocated inshore for the economic development of communities and people and move it to offshore, into company hands, brokers' hands, and also like one of our designates. So that's what we're fearful of, that we don't want it to go offshore. Now, why can we say that? Let's go back to this 5-year, multi-year designation policy that everybody talks about, and how Mr. Gowdy referred to this decision is an indication of the ramifications of a 5-year multi-year designation. Well, I got to correct him on that, because that is totally, totally wrong. The ramifications that we're feeling here are ones of a governing body, that's there to manage and ensure our allocation is allocated in the correct manner. So we, as harvesters, been looking for 20, 30, actually it goes to 40 years when this license first came down. And can I just go back to that? Like, I'm really ruining this, and this is so important. But, like, the fact of the matter is, we negotiated in faith with our government to have a 5-year multi-year designation to be in the spirit of our communal licensing, to help Indigenous harvesters to be able to get into vessels, their own vessels, to harvest this allocation that was sent down. So that was everybody agreed. At that time, people were getting some inshore, and once we were finished on inshore, whatever wasn't caught went to the offshore.
Okay,
so
Lisa,
we were all satisfied with that.
Okay,
yes.
so what entity or company got your inshore quota? What offshore company? Was it someone operating on behalf of the Nazi government inside a communal license, or is it an outside company removed from the government? Who got the quota?
OCI.
Okay, so OCI got the quota.
OCI got the quota. And TriNet Brokerage is another shareholder, along with Greg Flowers from our organization.
Okay, Mr.
And
Flowers.
Mr.
Flowers used to be minister of the government up there, so he had to wait. I think the cooling off period is a year before he could get involved. On top of that,
yes.
Is there also part of this conversation is about being willing to purchase your own enterprise and then access to the quota? Is that part of this conversation?
Yes, it is. So I need to clarify what the government is trying to tell the world about their own members. And I say it because, I'm tired of pussyfooting around because we can't get nowhere with this.
Okay,
so just as well to tell us the way it is.
Okay, so, and then say that. Tell us the way it is quickly.
Okay, so we all agreed to a 5-year multi-year allocation. All right, so now individuals that desire to be in this get a vessel, and then you can have 5-year multi-year allocation. Then there was members that said, well, hey, we want to continue as we were. So the government said, yeah, sure, that's no problem. We got enough quota to go around. So we can do boats and leasing. So people negotiated in faith that would happen. So it was all done with inshore intention. Now, this year, an individual applied with an offshore factory freezer with shareholders from an offshore company. And when that application was submitted, it should have been denied right from the start with the vessel, because this allocation, this 5-year allocation goes along with allowing Indigenous to get in their own boats inshore. It's not for offshore.
Okay, so
it should have been stopped there.
Lisa, do you own your own enterprise?
Patty, I'm not here to talk about me. Yes, I've been affected, and I've been affected grave ways. And actually, the phone call that I got personally, the phone call I got to warn me of the change, just as I was about to seal the deal to have a full-fledged Labrador Inuit woman-owned enterprise. Well, I had to step back because Mr. Flowers, at the minister that time, who can see every application and know what everybody's doing, called me up and said, well, we're changing the policies. He changed the policy to you had to live in Nunatsiavut. So I live in Goose Bay. I'm not in Nunatsiavut, but because I was receiving quota, well, I was at risk now because the policy changed, so it blew my business plan out of the water. So with that, now this is not what I want to be talking about, but I was affected as well, but I still have an allocation. I'm very knowledgeable, and I've been researching and following this since 2016 when I first had an allocation. Okay. And I seen what was happening, and the fact is we negotiated in good faith to keep it inshore. There was no discussion of this application process to come from offshore interests. We're trying to protect our inshore fisheries, and that is not protecting it.
Understood. Okay.
Now,
I do have to get to the news, though, Lisa. We can pick this up again another time if there's no solution or you don't get any traction within the Natsiavut government. How's that sound?
No, but Patty, you went on into that, and the fact is, I got to tell you this first.
You got to tell me quickly, though, because I have to go. I have to go.
Shrimp is 80 miles off our coastline. Turbot is 25 miles off our coastline. Cod is right in the harbor. Scallops is right off our shores. It's not. This is an inshore fishery. It's a communal license. It's meant for community level. So how this happened? Why the decision makers even allowed the application to be accepted? We're confused. We don't know. We can't get no answers. Nobody in Labrador will talk to us. Not one person.
Well, they'll talk to me.
And Well, here we are, right?
Well, here we are,
so,
Lisa,
like,
is right.
The only hope we got
I'll
is
try to... Lisa, I have to go. But I will invite the Latvia government on to talk about this decision, how the process was even allowed to unfold regarding the application by the offshore. How's that?
Well, you know what? I never got out the important points I had to.
Well, we're 10 minutes in,
to
so
this membership.
We can pick it up again another time.
The government is trying to criticize us by saying we don't have the training. But they're not giving us enough quota. They're not giving us the training.
Lisa, I have to get to the news. We'll pick it up another time, but we'll invite the government on to answer your questions. How's that? Work for you?
We need the fishery delayed.
Lisa,
we can't have it open. If it opens, it's gone. It's too late.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. There we go. I have to get to the news. All right, we'll pick that up again. Let's take a break for the news. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 6. Rosalind, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi.
I just had a few little things just regarding the mental health of our community. The first thing is the pop-up of these big lottery vending machines. They're everywhere, but in some places you can't even avoid them. You know, you're leaving the store and getting things that are necessary to live, and you have to pass right by them. I think that's not very compassionate and not necessary for people that are avoiding these addictions, that have addictions. If it's for convenience for customers that want to buy lotto, put them in the store that's already separate with cigarettes, with lotto. Put them in there if someone doesn't like the lineup.
Where are you seeing these VLT vending machines? And what exactly are they? I don't know if I'm familiar.
Well, can I say the name of one of them that bugs me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if it's in the building, it's public.
Yeah, Dominion in Mount Pearl.
Okay.
So because of security, they have you corralled around in and out of the store. There's only certain ways to get in and out without an alarm going off. Anybody who shops at Dominion have to pass by this unavoidable, big, huge lotto machine. So it's all the advertising, all the colors. They can't be avoided by anybody. If you go in that store, your attention is going to be drawn to that thing on your way out.
And so what can you buy from this vending machine?
Any type of lotto ticket. I guess it's a huge machine.
Okay.
You know, and there's a reason, I'm sure, why lotto and cigarettes and cannabis are separate in stores where you have to make a choice to be near those. So anyone that's avoiding that for health reasons, mental health reasons, they can't avoid it. And I just don't see, you know, if they say, okay, it's for convenience, well, put it in the store where people have to choose to go in there and not pass by it. And they're everywhere.
And you know what? Where I shop, I haven't seen them. So I'd be curious to see what they look like. So you can buy like a 649, a Lotto Max, a pull ticket, and a set for life. They're all inside this vending machine. Is that what you're telling me?
The set for life, although the scratch tickets I've seen available there, there's a big touch screen. And it's really big. Like, it's not a tiny little thing. It's something that would notice. And anyone that has an addiction or whatever, it's right there, and you can't avoid it. But if you're around Dominion and Mount Pearl, and I hate to kind of focus in on them, but that's where I go, and I just don't think there's any need, you know? Like, do they not make enough money? Can they not put it separate? Like, where you can't buy cigarettes in the grocery store when you're buying your groceries. It's in a separate place where you have to choose to go. So I think the lottery stuff should be in there too. Just just out of compassion, just out of the mental health of, our community.
I mean,
I have another.
Being exposed to whatever it is that you have an addiction to, whether it be drugs or alcohol or cigarettes or gambling or food, things can indeed have a negative impact on folks if they've been trying their level best to avoid buying a scratch ticket or whatever the case may be. So,
as if you buy bread, and milk or baby formula or whatever, you are in your face. You have to go out that way. You're going to, all of a sudden, I've only seen it in the last month or so. I was really surprised. I'm like, why is that there? That should not be there.
I don't know what type of financial arrangement that Dominion has with the Atlantic Lotto Corporation, but to be quite honest, I've never even seen one of these machines. But I suppose
apparently they're all over the place. Because I've mentioned it to other people that they're in a lot of different stores. That that's the only one really I go to mostly. I had a couple of other little things, if it's okay, and regarding health and mental health too.
Okay.
The other is I listen to the radio all the time, and I notice there's so many ads for alcohol now. It's like really, really common that they're advertising vodka, beer, everything. I didn't think that was something that, like, I don't understand why that's okay. I mean, I'm sure there's no lack of income coming in to the government for booze in Newfoundland or anywhere, I guess. But, same thing. It's separate. You can't buy booze when you're in the grocery store buying bread for a reason. So why, if someone's listening to the radio or their kids are listening to the radio, do they keep having these ads of, ice cold this and ice cold that and sales on vodka or, whiskey? That's kind of not compassionate either. Like, I'm sure, people know where the liquor store is. People know if they want to choose to go in there. Do they really need ads for addictive substances? And then they have all these programs for addictions. Well, try, being proactive. Try not having ads on there like that.
The world of advertising has a massive impact, and a lot of the ills of society are widely advertised, whether it be certain types of food. And, some things have changed here. Like you mentioned what's available in grocery stores. I can go to a grocery store in the United States and see the alcohol right there very close by the bread. So, and in different provinces, they take a different approach to where you can sell alcohol. Yeah. But advertising has been a tricky piece of business. In Canada, it wasn't that long ago that the Women's National Championship was the Des Maurier. And of course, you're not allowed to do that anymore. And some of the big notable races, automobile races, were sponsored by alcohol companies, and you're not allowed to do that anymore either.
And you have teenagers in your car, and raspberry vodka's on sale, or blueberry coolers are on sale. Do you know what I mean? Like they didn't want to sell flavored vape juice, and it's not consistent, and it's all money, of course. One more quick thing too, again, but this is kind of positive, and it's information that I got that I want to pass on.
Okay.
My daughter just was graduating from a DARE program, drug and alcohol
awareness in schools. Yeah.
Yeah. So right before graduation, I asked her what she learned. And now I vape about 90% less now because of the information she got. She said, Mommy, vaping is supposed to be treated like cigarettes. So in the nighttime when they're in bed, I'm doing laundry in the basement, I puff. There's not really a lot of information that says, that that's a bad thing on a different floor in your house or whatever. But I started looking it up, and there's so pretty much like anyone I talk to that vapes, they think because it doesn't smell bad and it doesn't turn your walls yellow that it's not bad. But from what I see, it can be really bad for
Absolutely.
young people's lungs. There's aerosols and who knows what else. A lot of people have, the younger the kids are, the more damage can happen to their lungs, but secondhand and thirdhand. So if you come in and it's on your clothes and a child has any type of asthma or anything like that, it's going to trigger that. So right away, because the thing is, right, I would never smoke cigarettes in the house. I never would smoke cigarettes in my house ever, kids or not. And here I was in my basement doing laundry, puffing away in the nighttime, thinking it's no harm, and it is harm. And I just want to make sure that take it outside like you would a cigarette. It is just as bad, possibly worse when we find out studies down the road.
Yeah, and I mean that vaping has been included with some new provincial regulations regarding not allowed to smoke and or vape on provincial government properties, whether it be hospitals, schools, or otherwise. And the prevalence of vaping amongst Canadian youth is really off the charts. And then people say, we have to do more with the regulations. Fair enough. I mean, all the cigarettes are hidden behind, closed doors, whatnot. But the vapes are right there.
I was addicted to that. Okay. I started vaping to quit smoking years ago. I was more addicted to nicotine because it's something that people wake up, they vape in their bedroom, they vape everywhere in their house, sometimes constant because it's seen as not harmful. So I just wanted to pass that on because that changed my behavior completely. I only vape outside because I have ADHD and I get distracted so easily. I don't go outside very much. I've cut down 90% about, so anyone that has young children or even anyone that doesn't vape and you're vaping in your house, just understand that it is like smoking cigarettes and take it outside.
I appreciate your time this morning, Rosalind. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah, the power of advertising is undeniable. I mean, there was a story that we spoke about last week. You know, we talk about safety and road safety and how safe vehicles are, and they'll use some of those awards they've gotten to, you know, tell us just how safe their track record is for one manufacturer or another. And then you look at how they're advertised on television. There's an awful lot of the ads regarding vehicles is about their speed. I mean, just think of that one where the older lady and the salesperson are doing donuts out in the parking lot, and you see them as much as I do. And so consequently, in countries where they've tried to rein in the way auto manufacturers advertise specifically on television, they've seen a reduction in stunting charges, and there's been a reduction in the amount of collisions, and consequently injuries and or deaths. I mean, it seems to me every time we read some of these stories, it's countries like Australia that seem to be, you know, putting in some controls. You know, that's also a country where they put in some controls regarding e-transfer and the threats and the harassment that happens in the note section. So that you just can't do it in Australia. Here, it happens apparently all the time. People are making e-transfers of as little as 5 cents to harass someone that they were intimate with in the past. They've been blocked on social media. The cell phone number is blocked. But they can just continue to pester you and harass you and threaten you just with an e-bank transfer. The technology is there to deal with it. Other countries have figured it out. The big banks in this country, well, they're working on it. Well, work a little faster. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Rob's a truck driver. He's in the queue to talk about accommodations on Marine Atlantic. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 5. Rob, you're on the air.
How are you today, Patty?
Best kind. How about you?
Well, you know, fair to middle for an old fella. But I'm just calling in because, like I say, I've been a truck driver for almost 40 years, traveling Marine Atlantic, back and forth weekly, sometimes twice a week. And I just got a problem with how they, you know, book these rooms and accommodations. That's all. I don't think it's fair. I mean, you know, if you're going to sell a person a spot on the boat, whether it's commercial, whatever it is, plan for these things. You know, they sell 35 bedrooms the other night for us drivers. That's all they give us, and they put 55 trucks on. So they got 15 people that now either have to share a room or stand there and wait to see if all the other passengers have rooms.
Okay, so exactly how does the process work for regular passenger traffic like I would be versus commercial like you would be?
Well, we pretty well get bumped. We're allowed. They tell us they say 50 spots roughly on the boat for us. That can fluctuate down to 35, up to more. Depends on time of year, and that's the way I see it. And like I say, I go down. I buy my ticket at the gate. They ask me if I would like a room. Yes, I would like a room. And that's how it was going. Now, they call it an upgrade. We have to pay for it now out of our own pocket, after the company's already paying $800 to put me on the boat. So we get on the boat, and like I say, we could get on the boat, and we want a room. I don't want to sleep in a 6x8 room with a little bathroom with somebody I don't know that could roll over and smack me. There's 1.5 feet between the beds. I mean, you know, I just don't want to sleep with a stranger. And shouldn't have to. I mean, we're providing a service to this island back and forth, hauling freight. And when we get to that boat as a driver, and I'm speaking for a lot of us, and I hope you hear from a lot of us, but, you know, we should be able to go on that boat, get upstairs, get our room, go upstairs, have our shower, lay back, watch a little TV, go down to the canteen if we want. And that should be a right. Now, you know, that should be, if you're selling... Like the other night, they sold 50 spots or 55 spots. I don't know the exact number. Truckers put us on the boat. Well, we got upstairs. There was no room for sure. They didn't know. We'll probably, you'll have to wait until the end. Well, that's another hour standing around in the lobby with a bunch of trucks, and it's not fair to the staff even that's on that boat. This is somebody else making these decisions. The staff has to put up with listening to all of us, and they shouldn't have to listen to all of us because it's not them. It's not them. They're good people. They listen. We get treated like fine as kind on them boats. I've never had a complaint from none of them. And I don't want to put it to the staff, because it is not the staff. It is who is arranging and put us on these boats. Why they sell 35 bids and 55 trucks come on, well, that's not right. You know why they do that? Because they can get away with it, and that's $9,000 worth of revenue. Once the anchors are pulled and we're sailed, what are you going to do? Ask to get off the boat? Because we don't have accommodations for you? You know, they shouldn't do these things. It should be told before we get on the boat. You have a chance to get a room, yes, or we don't get a room. Are you still interested in getting on the boat? You have to share. They shouldn't do that after we're on the boat.
I'm not exactly sure why that would be. So, like, for instance, as a regular passenger...
The common sense... Oh, go ahead, Paddy, sorry.
I was going to say, look, if I book a room, that's it. It's done. I have a room.
Yeah.
They've sent me a confirmation number. That's case closed. Yeah. But you're telling me for commercial traffic...
We can't do that. We can't do that, Pat. I can't phone in. If I want to pre-book and go premium on a boat, I have to pay double. And that still doesn't guarantee me a room. So it'll be $1,600 to make sure I get on that boat. One way. Now you wonder why our groceries are high. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm not going to tell you what I'm hauling or the company I'm hauling for, because it could, you know, backfire on our company. But like I say, I made in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I made 9 trips on that boat. 9 trips. That's a lot of money. You know? And I mean, the revenue, without truckers going on that boat 12 months of the year, that boat they couldn't buy another boat. As everybody knows, it's the lifeline to Newfoundland. All your produce, your meat, everything comes back and forth on that boat.
Yep.
And they have the monopoly. I mean, I tried to get a hold of somebody to give me an answer and they all got a different answer, because they got about 35 chiefs, and you got to get to I don't know who the chief is yet, because there's never the same answer. And even the staff, like I say, they're fabulous. I mean, if you've been on Marine Atlantic boats, the staff are more than helpful, grateful, and pleasant. Got nothing to do with the staff. It's just common sense. I don't know where it's at anymore. It don't make sense to me. I mean, it's not logical. You guys go home at night. We don't. We live in our trucks to get freight back and forth this island. I love my job. I've been doing it 40 years. And like I say, I love it. But, I mean, a little TV and a layback at night for 6 hours, I pay $116 to $20 for a closet that's, really not an old quilt thrown on it and a pillow at the end of it. It's not the Ramona Inn. There's no mint in the double bed in the big room, and you get it for 24 hours. You're getting it for a 6-hour boat ride,
right? Which
we need to run this electronic log that we're on now. We need that time to show on our boats that we've been in a bid.
Understood.
I go to bed at night. I go to bed at night in the truck. I don't open the door and share it because somebody ain't got a room. It's just no common sense. And I like somebody to that knows something. I'm not highly educated. I'm a truck driver, but I got common sense. And common sense would say, if you're selling the guy a ticket and he comes through that gate first, he should have that room first.
Daryl Mercer.
Nothing to do.
Okay.
It's got nothing to do with campers, transport, anything. But everybody else seems to get first. That's not right.
Daryl Mercer, who's the communication guy at Marine Atlantic, he's usually pretty easy to get in touch with. So, Dave, let's see if we can't get Mr. Mercer to talk about the process and how commercial traffic is handled and why there's not a confirmation number offered to Rob, for instance, as opposed to me. If I book a passage in a room or a berth, then I get the berth. There's no guessing games when I get loaded on. Okay, final thoughts to you, Rob. Go ahead.
Well, like I say, I had one person say it was the Truckers Association that agreed to this. But the Trucker Association is these big companies, Midland, Armour, that ship. 90% of their trailers are shipped from side to side, not drivers, shipped. So, if you go down to Marine Atlantic on any given day and look in the truck lineup, if you see a Midland or a Day and Ross or an Armour truck, it's either they're hauling fish or they're going up for maintenance. That's it. So, there's the other bigger companies here. I mean, our company has, probably 25 trucks and make a lot of trips across this island. And I know just as many more that have that kind of number in trucks and are doing the same to make a living and love coming here. But Marine Atlantic has made it a nightmare. And they're making it worse. I mean, the rates are ridiculous. This is supposed to be an open highway for Newfoundlanders, not for a big boat like they just bought with it. It's beautiful. It's going to be used on the Argentine run, but it's not going to help the freight part. They put us on the old Leaf Erickson, and that don't have no TVs in the room. It has no canteen. You get a snowy TV, and we're paying the same rate to get on that. That's a real deal. It shouldn't be.
We'll invite Marine Atlantic on this morning. I think Dave's going to send that email off during this upcoming break. Rob, I appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for the call.
All right. Thank you for listening.
You're welcome. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
you too, sir. It'd be helpful to know exactly what the process is, why it is the way it is. We can get Mr. Mercer to come on the program. Generally speaking, when we invite him on, he's quick to react. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go line number 4. Simeon, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
Yes, my topic is today double standard where my workplace within Innu Nation. I'm sure a lot of you your listeners will recall I was the spearheaded of the launching inquiry Labrador Inner Children who are in foster care, and I've been I was hired last election, right after the last election of Innu Nation as a communication assistant officer. And every time I try to attend the inquiry that's related to inquiry matter, and I'm always being asked by my administration to fill out annual leave. And my wife, she's the inquiry coordinator within Innu Nation. And every time we try to do a visit or attend the matter of the Labrador Inner Children Inquiry, we were always asked to fill out the annual leave, and that's to me it's a double standard because it's I know that the both communities, Natashish and Shahadit, will benefit once the final report comes out and once the inquiry is concluded.
So Simeon, what's the actual double standard? I'm sorry?
The double standard is, like, we've always been asked to fill out the annual leave. We're going to be attending inquiry matter.
Okay.
So and it's part of the both communities that the inquiry is a part of both communities are part of the Labrador Children Inquiry. And that's very important to me because I was the one who spearheaded. I said that in the beginning of the show when I called in. And it's important that we will see some changes. Hopefully we'll see the changes in legislation, Newfoundland legislation, how Newfoundland and us as Innu Nation conduct business with how to deal with our Innu children while if they need the protection, child protection. And that we're going to be involved. The Innu people, both communities will be involved. We'll have a say what transpired with that child's child safety plan. Anyway, I this is the second time I have a problem with our Innu Nation administration. Like every time I try to attend the ketamine therapy out in the Western Edmonton, and then we were chastised to fill out the bullied, harassed, right to harassment, and brought us to our tears and almost walk away from it, but we didn't, and we were told we have to fill out annual leave, and we went the treatment day program here right in Shahadit, a day treatment program to deal with our grief and trauma. What we experienced with our last son when he took his life back in May, and kind of hurt. And it was hard. It was very hard to deal with, to digest. But we needed help. But we didn't seek help right away. Right after, we took alcohol, we took cocaine, we took drugs, street drugs, in order for us to cope our our trauma. That was the only coping mechanism we had. But we did manage to attend the day program and on to ketamine therapy out in Western Edmonton in March. But we were challenged. We were asked. We were not entitled to leave. But the fact is, we know there's one particular Inno Nation member, staff member she works in the Inno Nation, that she took 2 treatment leaves within 4 month period, and she was not given the same standards that we were given. She was not harassed. She was not. There was no question asked. She went. But when we tried to go to treatment, we were just given the treatment that we were not entitled to. But to me, that's a big double standard, because favoring to one group or one person over another, it's a double standards are unfair, and it teaches us that we're not in a group, we're not in a body system, we're not supporters of the Inno Nation of the administration or higher ups like a head of the state, because we're not those people. But others, like I know the fact that there's a few people that I know that people are not even reporting working in the office without being asked to fill out annual leave and still get the full pay salary every week, no questions asked. And they're untouchables because they are the buddies of the Grand Chief, and they are untouchables. But why are we? My question is, why are we've been harassed and being bullied every time that we are trying to travel? But if I go like I'm going to go next one here in Shad with the inquiry, I know I'm not going to be asked to fill out the annual leave form, because I know I'm not, because I have not been asked that. But every time I try to travel outside of Shad or from Goose Bay, going to St. John's or somewhere else regarding the inquiry, then I'll be asked, you have to fill out annual leave. Oh, and it's important that we attend the matter that's been called upon us by our lawyer regarding the inquiry, because it's very important that we see these documents for our son, and it will help the community. It will benefit the community at the end of the day. And if the Inno Nation thinks that the inquiry is not important, maybe the Inno Nation, the elected Inno officials, should ask, should halt the inquiry if it's not important to the communities. Then I challenge them, do that, and then we don't have to worry about attending these inquiry meetings or attend any activities that happen for the inquiries within our communities. Okay. Then that's the end of the story.
Fair enough. We actually had the commissioners on, including Judge Igliorte, not that long ago. I appreciate the time, Simeon. Thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Terry, you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy.
Hi there.
Paddy, how's it going, my buddy? Paddy, I was talking to you last year, and only for you, I would be on the street because you got me in the apartment. I want to thank you so much right off the bat for that.
Happy to help.
No sweat, Paddy. I got to tell you a little story, Paddy. I had a heart attack Sunday night. I live about 3-minute walk from the St. Clair's, so I walked to the St. Clair's when it eased off a little bit. I didn't know at the time I was actually having a heart attack. I had a really bad pain in the chest. So I went to emergency. I was treated fantastic. They got me into triage and then put me in the room. I don't know if you're familiar, Paddy. Once you go to triage, you're in a room with 4 different people till they fall in your bed or release you or whatever. Okay. And I was there, Paddy, for 18 hours. Now, when the specialist come in with her team, she told me, Terry, you had a heart attack and your heart actually stopped. Now, Paddy, that terrified me. I was beside myself. I said, at least I'm in the right spot. I said, perfect. She said, we're going to take care of you. She said, we're going to get you the dye test. If you don't be admitted, it could take 8 months. But if you be admitted, I can get you in for a dye test within 8 and 10 days. So all day long, for 18 hours, Paddy, I had 2 sandwiches and not a wink of sleep. So at 18 hours, at 8 o'clock last night, I asked one of the nurses, I said, sweetheart, I said, am I going to get a room today? Or she said, let me check, Terry. And she come back and said, no, my God, Terry, she said, could be this time tomorrow before you get to bed. Well, I said, darling, I said, I've had 2 sandwiches for 18 hours and my eyes were hanging out of my head. She even said to me, my God, you look so tired. I said, I can't sleep here. I said, I live 3 minutes away. I said, I'm going home. And I said, it was going to be like another 18 or 20 hours before I get to bed. I said, no, she said, let me speak to a doctor come in, and he told me, Terry, he said, your heart's actually stopped. Now, he said, if you want to get the dye test done tomorrow morning, you got to stay in. I said, no, you're lying. I said, your boss told me that I'd probably be 8 to 10 days, but if not, it'd be 8 months. You know what they did, Paddy? He come back and he give me a prescription, and he said, here, my buddy, he said, I hope the prescription keeps you alive for 8 months. You can do what you like. And let me go home. And before that, he offered, he said, we can give you a dark room to lie into, and he said, I'll give you another sandwich. And this is what was offered to me. Paddy, I come home after having, according to the doctor, a major heart attack. And that room was empty twice while I was into it, the other 3 beds, and I was still there. And was nothing done for me. And for that doctor to say to me, I hope this medication keeps you alive for 8 months, you can get the dye test, I think it's totally unacceptable. If they don't prioritise a 59-year-old man with a heart attack, Paddy, who are they prioritising?
Fair enough. And so help me understand the difference between 8 days and 8 months for a turnaround for a dye test. So what was the difference therein?
Because apparently the wait list had it, because when the team of doctors come in, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, why was it in one circumstance you could get it in 8 days versus 8 months? Was that if you were admitted or something?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what was said to me, Paddy. The chief doctor said to me, Terry, she says, if you be admitted, she says, I can get you into that dye test between 8 and 10 days.
Gotcha.
But if not, she said it's going to be 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, the wait list for a dye test is extraordinary. And how many people in this province are currently lying in a hospital bed? They probably feel well enough to be at home, but they're lying in a hospital bed waiting for a dye test. I remember specifically speaking with a fellow who was lying in a said hospital bed in Cornerbrook. And it was months on end. And he felt well enough to go, but they wouldn't discharge him based on any sort of liabilities. He died in that hospital before he got the dye test. And I also have wondered aloud, with the only one catheterization lab in the province being at the Health Sciences Centre, I believe that's accurate, why there wasn't one going to be put in, for instance, the newly constructed hospital in Cornerbrook. We're told it's a staffing issue, very much similar to some of the conversation regarding radiology, but there's a long way and an awful lot of anxiety that will brew up or be stirred up between 8 days versus 8 months.
Absolutely, Paddy. And another thing, the doctor who gave me the prescription before I left, and he said, Terry said, you realise, he said, when you go sleep now, you might not wake up. He said, we're really concerned about your blood work. And he said, we need more tests. And he said, there's a good chance, he said, you could have another major heart attack and you will not make it here. And then his last words to me were, he said, I hope the medication keeps you alive for 8 months. Good luck to you.
Yeah, that's cold comfort. Oh, my.
Yeah.
And, Terry, how are you feeling today? Before we say goodbye, how are you feeling?
Very anxious, Paddy. My heart is here racing. I think it's because I'm opening up to you, but I got to walk now to the drugstore just down St. Clair's a little bus. It's not worth getting the bus. There's only 2 stops, and get this medication. Hopefully it keeps me alive, but if not, at least someone knows what's happening. And if I drop dead tomorrow, the next day, or 2 months down the road, and actually they never even give me a piece of paper saying that I'm on the list for a dye test whatsoever. So I don't know what to think no more, and I don't know. It's no good for me to go back to St. Clair's because I'm sure I'll be blackballed and I won't even be looked at. So I don't know what to do. But you know what? I still have pains in the chest, and according to those people, I could die anytime. I could have a major heart attack. Anyway, they sent me home, Paddy, and for 18 hours, give me 2 sandwiches, another place to lie down and have a good nap.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my event for today, Paddy, and I thank you for your time.
I appreciate yours. You stay well.
All right,
thanks, Terry. All the best. Bye-bye. The system, boy, oh boy. Let's go ahead and take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 7. Say good morning to the Liberal member for Cornerbrook. He's the Minister of Immigration, Population Growth and Skills, Jerry Byrne. Minister Byrne, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. A very serious situation in our province has become even more grave, unfortunately. There was a situation where significantly and unmistakably racially orientated comments were made that have to be called out. It is a duty for us all not to be silent in the face of racism and racist comments. There were comments that were made by a political leader, an active political leader in our province, that I felt as though, and the vast majority of those who are reasonable-minded about these things would say have clear racial overtones. And those comments are that Indian and Pakistani doctors should not be recruited to come to join us in our healthcare system in Newfoundland and Labrador. They do not stay here. They move to Toronto. They're not like us. They don't like the outdoors. They're not like us. What we really need to do is recruit from a predominantly white society, the Germans, who like us, like the outdoors, and are more like us. This is unmistakably racially and overtoned because it is on its face. This is a target against Indian and Pakistani healthcare professionals. And clearly, Paddy, the very premise of this at its first level is false. It is totally factually.
Okay, I've heard you say that.
Truth.
You said that it's completely false. So give us some additional context as to how and why it is false. What do we know about, whether it be an Irish doctor, Indian doctor, Pakistani doctor, German doctor, about how long they stay? For me, the comments, Mr. Paddock has apologized, been accepted by Tony Wakeham and what have you. But even if we're talking about recruitment of doctors, period, and NL Health Services talk about the fact that 25 new doctors have been recruited in the first 3 months of 24.
No, this is a rationalization, Paddy. I'm sorry. This is an absolute rationalization.
No, I was going to add a point that's actually
a redirect of a clarification. What he said what his comments were still hurtful, and they cast an aspersion, a very targeted aspersion, against a very large group of racialized people, and it was wrong. Full stop. There are 51 Indian and Pakistani doctors who have been recruited to come to Newfoundland and Labrador in the last 5 years. There have been 0 from Germany. So if we really want to double down here and just talk about numbers, when it's really about a very serious issue of racial epithets, of casting aspersions against a wide range of society, that really a racialized group of people, that is not acceptable. And what I can say to you and to others that might accept this as a clarification and a responsible one, we look at Dr. Maroon, one of the most famous neurosurgeons that ever graced us, who came from this particular area, who not only served us for decades, stayed here, but recruited others to come here. I look at Dr. Prezada, president of the Muslim Association of Newfoundland and Labrador, who's a specialist, a dermatologist. My doctor, who's treating me for a serious illness, is a Muslim and from India. My family physician is a second-generation Indian. So to make the suggestion that there is any factual context that can be made to these comments is utterly disrespectful, and I will not stand by it.
Fine. I'll go ahead and make the point I was going to make before you jump back in. So the issue is, regardless of where a doctor is recruited from, whether it be Mun's Med School and or domestically in the country and or abroad, the fact of the matter is there's a 5-year return on service. So to not even acknowledge that, which was news last week, it sort of just makes the comments even more clumsy and or however people want to label it, whether it be gross or inappropriate or misguided or misleading, whatever the case is, regardless of where the doctor's from, they're here for 5 years. So how that's not factored into this conversation does make it even more problematic, I think, for Mr. Paddock.
Well, it certainly does, but not only from those who enter our medical school, some of the best and brightest minds of the entire planet who come to Newfoundland and Labrador to practice medicine and to learn medicine, to practice medicine, who we need to embrace and recruit, but to suggest that it is ill-founded and unwise and unhelpful and ineffective to recruit from India and Pakistan for our doctors. We just recruited 51 doctors from this region situation in the last 5 years. Could you imagine the quality and capacity of our healthcare system if we simply voiced what was said here in these comments and said, please stop coming. We don't think you're like us. We don't think you share the same things as us. We need someone who shares the same things with us. That is inherently wrong. And it has racial overtones that cannot be rationalized. And I feel very, very strongly about this because it becomes normalized. It is hurtful. And and hate begets hate. And I'll read to you a comment that was just emailed as a result of the normalization and the rationalization that came in to the Muslim Association that has now been referred to the RCMP, and it reads, were I am Muslim, I would have had the sense enough to run and hide as quickly as I could. Now we see the racism endemic in the Indian population and in the Muslim population. They had absolutely no reason to get involved in this. Rather than show their true colors, they should have said nothing, absolutely nothing. That was written in reply to hate begetting hate, and that's why it has to be called out, and that's why I feel very, very strongly that Mr. Tony Wakeham's rationalization of this, saying that he's a good guy, so it's okay, that is not good enough.
Appreciate the time. We're late for the news. Thank you, Minister. Here we go. Let's take that break. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Where am I going here? David, I'll take my cue from you. That's a 1. Okay, let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Susan Guiney. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi, Susan.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Good. Well, we're both facing little health problems right now again, but we're getting over it. I had to take some time off work for mine, and Bill is home after surgery in Yellowknife. So, but we're okay. We're on the mend.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. And so Bill sent you an email.
I don't know if I've seen it. Well, I've had a few email glitches, so every now and then I go to refresh and I get like 100 in a row. So I'm still trying to catch up. Tell us what's happening.
Okay, today is the start of our 9th annual push-up challenge. And, of course, you know that we're going to go towards 1 million push-ups. And that seems excessive, but if you think about all, like we're going to so many different schools all along the Southern Shore, the Gould's, St. Kevin's, St. Catherine's, different ones, Baltimore, Mobile, and we're going to be going to these schools and talking to the kids and staff and teachers of all the schools and giving them a little pledge, like it's a sheet that they can fill out for their push-ups. And we're trying to encourage everybody to do push-ups and get this on the go. And then Bill will go back and talk to them at the end and see how our tally goes towards the end of it and see how far we get into the 1 million push-ups. But he sent a link to you.
Okay, I'll find
it. The link is on the email, and you can share that link with anybody you want with, and talk about this every now and then, and remind them that Bill is doing push-ups, and he can't do a whole lot of push-ups, but he's going to do his part.
I'm sure he will, as he's done over the years. Been pretty impressive fundraising and awareness campaigns you two have entertained, so good on you.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I mean, this has to be talked about. And that's the most important thing: talking about it and making people feel comfortable to talk about it when they face a problem themselves. I mean, there's so much, and what we like about the schools is in schools there's so much peer pressure and people with high anxieties, kids with anxieties because they feel pressured and they have their own anxieties maybe before they even came into school. And school is hard on anybody. So I think talking to them, will open it up at a younger age so they can learn to face these problems in the future. Some people go through all their school life. My girls, they didn't open up to us until high school that they had anything. And we always thought that it was just anxiety and depression. It wasn't until later that we heard about borderline personality disorder and trying to understand that, to help them. It's a challenge for anybody out there, any parent that has a kid challenging or fighting this, and we just have to learn to talk more about it. Open up. Parents, teachers, doctors, nurses, counselors, like anybody that can talk about it. It's just a matter of learning how to.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by learning how to?
Well, not learning how to, but I didn't know how to talk about my mental health problems. But when I did learn how to, and I think in these past 9 years, the more I talk about it, the more people reach out to us and talk to us about their mental health. So I think that finding somebody that can talk to you is the key. Even if it's just your best friend, your mother, your father, it takes... You know how they say it takes a village to raise a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a kid with a depression and anxiety, all these medical terms for mental health, it takes a village to raise them too, because they have doctors and counselors and parents and teachers and friends, and it's not easy for them to, a lot of times, to make friends because of this. So I think it's just a matter of, yes, we do need the funds to help with this, but talking is the best thing we can donate. It's just learning how to lift the stigma towards mental health.
Absolutely. It was once upon a time, and I don't know how much better it is these days about people being openly, willingly to talk about their own mental health concerns. I think it's getting better. Maybe I'm a cockeyed optimist on that front, but we've been trying to entertain pretty open conversations on this particular program, and more and more people have come forward, and, whether it be via email and or live on the phone, to be wanting and able to talk about it. I think that's the first step. Now, of course, it's not the be-all and end-all. We need to improve the system, period, especially when we talk about continuity of care, long-term access. But I think it is not looked down upon like it once was. And I don't know how to measure whether or not it's getting to where we need it to be. I think we're falling short still, but I'd like to think it's getting better.
Yeah. So we're going to go around to schools today, starting today. And Bill's also introduced the talking stick. He's carved a talking stick and he's going to eventually donate one to all the schools that we go to. And it's a talking stick where if you have a problem, maybe you can, Bill finds comfort in having something in his hand to talk. And, I remember years ago, he used to always have, his lighter when he smoked, or his keys, or a pen. So this talking stick gives if you want to use it, just go up and take the talking stick, and people listen to you. It's your turn to talk. You can tell me what's on your mind, that type of thing. So we're going to introduce that today to some of the kids and say, here you go. This is a talking stick, and we're going to donate one to each school. So.
And fair enough. You're doing great work. Tell Bill I will find that email, and I'm happy to share the link with whoever reaches out to me, and or if you tag me on social media, I'll do it there as well. So that much I'm happy to do.
Thank you, Patty, for all your support over the years, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Me too, Susan. Thanks for the call. Say hi to Bill for me.
I will.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Muskrat Falls. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go line number 6. Good morning, Tom Davis. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
I'd like to start by emphasizing how supportive I am of the speed cameras. And, with the issues we have with Kenmont Terrace in many parts of the province and the city, I'm really hopeful that that's going to come as quick as possible.
Okay.
You still there? Yeah. Okay. I also want to thank the staff, families, and children in Chocolate Place. Last Friday, we did a community cleanup, and it's great to see 4-year-olds and 14-year-olds and 40-year-olds all out picking up garbage. It's good to see.
Absolutely. I know there's a big cleanup coming on the Outer Ring Road. There's one in my neighborhood coming up. I've seen a couple of people send me notes about what they're doing in their community, and I've asked them to call and just share the information. If not, I'll do it for them. But let's hope that people see it as being a concern and will do something about it. Because, if we're going to rely on government to do everything, which I think is always a fool's errand, we should probably take it a little bit more seriously. But anyway, there you go.
Mount Hope is doing a cleanup in Virginia Park this Sunday at 1 o'clock in working with the Biology Society and the Ocean Sciences Society. I'm going to be there as well, so I hope to see people out for that. David Brake was on earlier, and he mentioned the consultations that are happening Wednesday, tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock down at the City Hall from 7 till 9, and then there's also virtual one on Thursday for those who can't get out in person. We really encourage people to consult and to make their voice heard. There's a lot of changes that will potentially have some impact. David has pointed out some possible challenges. That's why it's important for people to get involved in the process. So we encourage everybody to come out for that.
Fair enough.
So, you started off talking about the number of food insecure people in the province. 134,000, I believe, is what you said.
That's what it translates to, yeah.
And here comes our power bill increases, which obviously are, although the confusing announcements last week, then Newfoundland Power kind of tagging in and reminding everybody that what the province announced last week is only related to Muskrat Falls, that portion. And in addition, it is also only really looking out as far as 2030, which is not that far away in the big scheme of things. And remind everybody, when governments use the word investments, I think we need to see through that and realize it's expenses that are either increasing, how much our taxes are going to be, how much we're borrowing, or the ability of government to spend money in some other place. And I think we got to see right through that. And I think government has stopped using, for lack of a better word, deceptive communications talk and be straight with people. And although it's difficult.
On what specifically? Sorry?
Well, when they use the word investments in this, investments in that.
It's their spends. They're all spends.
It's spin, and it's not getting us anywhere because it just further creates this illusion that they have the situation under control and it's business as usual when it's not. But getting into that, there's almost only so much that individuals can do. But the other thing to realize with increased power bills, there's a pretty good chance that if the PUB approves the different increases that are coming down the pipe, that power could go up as much as 10% this year. Then we also have the potential eighth generation generating station in Beta Spear, which would be another potential rate increase. Whatever we're going to do with New Holyrood is another potential rate increase, because any money we spend has to be paid for by the consumers of the power. However, there's only so much anybody can do, but they also need to realize that also means, for example, in the city of St. John's, in 2018, we spent $8.6 million on electricity. If that were to go up 10%, that's another $860,000. All the communities, cities have that same impact. As well, businesses will also see increases. As well, that potentially can have the impact for a business to make it not competitive if it's in the production and it requires a lot of electricity. And also stuff like data centers, which there's a lot of call for data centers up in Labrador. So all these things had to be taken into account. But on an individual level, my message today is next year power is going to be more expensive, no matter what. Take the time now, take advantage of the programs that exist to insulate and seal up your home. There's actually an income-tested program that Take Charge has got going right now. Up to the end of May 31st, you can apply, and it'll pay for 100% of the installation as well as the insulation that's going to go in for attic insulation. So I encourage people. I got it on my both the link for the virtual meeting on the development regulations as well as for this attic installation. It's all on my Facebook page for Tom Davis, counselor. Anyway, there are programs out there, and I just want to get the message out there. The Take Charge programs, whether it's insulating your basement, insulating your attic, even if you don't meet the qualifications for the 100% install, up to 75% of insulation. And again, insulation is static. It doesn't require any maintenance as a rule if it's installed properly. Sealing up those drafts, spend the money now. There's a little things you can do, but a lot of times, if you feel powerless, doing something can help your situation and save you money and make life a little bit affordable.
It's the little ones that make the biggest difference. You can talk about the programs to convert from oil to central heat pumps or electric furnaces or the like, but the real immediate savings can come with the smallest stuff, windows and insulation and those things that I've mentioned many times in the past. A drafty home, even if you do convert to some other form of energy, the draft will continue to be there. So, shoring up those types of things makes it a little bit more manageable, I think. Well, that's where we started anyway.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. And unfortunately, there are people who focus too much, like you just said, on the source of heat. A few people I've talked to had put in mini splits, and then in the winter, the house was still cold, and then they got an insulator to come in and realized it was an older home. Very little attic insulation, very little insulation in a lot of different places. So it's kind of backwards. You spend $10,000, $20,000 on your heating source. But if you can reduce how much heat you require because you lose less, that's your best and smallest investment. So I encourage everybody to take the time. Try not to be a boiling frog like many of us are. Take action in your own hands. Do what you can, and that kind of mindset. Once you start applying it to different parts of your life, you can find maybe life a little bit more affordable. And for people who are really struggling, just want to let you know we're thinking about you. And if there's anything I can do, reach out anytime.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. Let's see. Get the right button here. Let's keep rolling. Line number 3. Kevin, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, Kevin.
Paddy, first-time caller.
Welcome.
Lifetime listener. I just had to give you a call this morning to throw the biggest bouquet that was ever thrown out to the St. Clair's Emergency Department. I had an accident on Saturday. I sliced my hand up with a chainsaw, and I made a record time, Paddy. I was in and out in 2 hours. Can you believe that?
Well, excellent news, and not a common story either. Generally speaking, presenting to an emergency room means for an awful long wait as opposed to 2 hours. But I guess it's all based on the severity of your injury and, how you get triaged. So how'd you slice your hand up with a chainsaw?
I don't know, Paddy, to call it complacency or what. I've been using the chainsaw for over 40 years, and it's the first time I ever had an accident.
So it just bucked back off whatever you were cutting?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and it went down between my fingers as well, Paddy.
Ugh.
So, like I said, I went into that emergency department expecting to be there for 12, 16 hours. And the staff was so polite and so accommodating, I could not let that go. I had to give you a call and let people know that it's not all bad news.
No, and that's the good news. Generally when people get into the system, whether it means at the emergency room and or see a specialist or admitted to hospital, generally speaking, the treatment and the bedside manner that people experience is top quality. The problem is the waits and the stuff that frustrates folks, by and large. And so, Kevin, how bad was the damage to your hand?
I got all stitched up, and I got an appointment now for next Tuesday to get them taken out. So I've been changing my bandages out every day. So it's coming along good, Paddy.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Chainsaw can be a nasty piece of equipment if it gets away from you or bucks back off a knot in a piece of wood, or the chain comes loose and flies off. I spent a couple of winters running a chainsaw in the woods clearing fire load, and I mean, I probably haven't always been that attentive to all the protective equipment I should be wearing, but with that bloody chainsaw, and it was mandated by the brass, we wore from the chaps to the guards on our forearms and the helmet and the goggles. I mean, because I was always worried about that, and we were running big chainsaws, so if the chain ever came loose, you were done.
Guaranteed.
Well, I'm glad that you had the experience you did. I'm glad that you're doing okay, Kevin, and I appreciate your call as a first timer. Anything else you want to say?
No, Paddy, I just got to tell you, you're doing a fabulous job there.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. That's it.
Thanks, buddy. Stay in touch.
You too, sir.
Okay, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I mean, every now and then, and I think that probably passes the smell test. Is, look, the wait times are what they are, and they're a huge problem, whether it be for an MRI or to get a surgery. It's obviously a problem, and it really does lead to further anxiety for the individual and their family and their friends. And, you know, I saw someone pose an interesting question on social media this morning about wait times, and I'm glad it worked out for Kevin the way it did. You know, I've seen reports based on what the impact is on productivity and the economy when we talk about healthcare concerns. Because for the most part, your productivity and your ability to work is hampered if you have a serious enough issue where you're waiting to see a specialist and or more specifically a surgery. And that's not the case 100% of the time, but it's certainly a potential problem. The impact on the economy alone is significant. You know, we can talk about productivity and what that means, input versus output. But the fact of the matter is, when people are missing an extensive amount of work because they are waiting to get the treatment they require, it has not only an issue regarding the individual, because of course that's real and we can all think what the impact would be there, but the overall impact to the economy is massive. Amazing research done on that front. How are we doing on the phone there, David? We got some gear coming back? Okay, let's take a break for the news. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Kim, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. I'm a first-time caller, and I'm just complaining about the T-bone steaks that were on sale at Dominion.
Okay. What was the problem?
I guess a lot of people are not aware that they're using ungraded beef from Mexico.
Now, I've heard this type of complaint in the past. I guess it's like everything else. It's the whole buyer beware, right? Make sure you read the labels, know what you're getting yourself into. But there is a very clear rules regarding inspection of imports, whether it be beef from Mexico or elsewhere. So the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, that's part and parcel with what they do. The fact of the matter is, the problem here is that I don't even think the Mexicans grade their beef like we're used to. We talk about AAA beef from Alberta or what have you. So yes. I don't even know if they even applied that type of grading system in that country.
Well, it says right on it, ungraded beef from Mexico. I didn't realize. I did have them before, and they were tough like you chewing a piece of leather. We tenderized it and marinated, and it's still is like tough leather. And a lot of people probably don't realize that this is Mexico. After all the beef in Canada, we got to get down low like that and get ungraded beef from Mexico.
I suppose that would be a decision made by the individual retailer, as you know, whether it be price point or availability or whatever the concern would be. But you're not wrong to say, hey, you got to know what you're buying here. And so if the grading system is important to you, make sure you look at the label carefully. No question.
Yeah, I just, wanted to buyer beware, because I get a lot of people. When I was there was a lot of people buying steaks, and they probably didn't realize it until they got home, like myself. When I got home, and somebody mentioned, is that the steaks from Mexico? And I was like, oh, crap. It's a bit ridiculous.
It certainly can be. Well, I appreciate the heads up, and I won't be one of the ones buying one of those steaks. I suppose part of the issue here is just how we've all changed our buying habits, or most people have anyway, is price point is really guiding a lot of decisions. I'd extend that further to, surveys done talking to Canadians about how attentive they are to best before dates. It used to be people saw the best before date, that's enough for that product, in the garbage it goes, or maybe even donate it to a food bank, which is potentially a problem as well. But it's price. Most of the decisions, some of the brands that I prefer, I haven't been buying them because I can get a better price on other brands. And so consequently, I've changed my habits in the grocery store.
Well, I won't be buying. A lot of people are after telling me they don't buy steaks at Dominion no more, and I guess, that was my main spot to buy at Dominion Steaks, but guess what? I won't be buying them there no more.
Fair enough. Your money and how you spend it is entirely up to you, as it should be.
Yes, thanks, Patty, for your time. I just want to let people be aware in case they weren't.
I appreciate the call.
Okay, thank you.
You too. Bye-bye. She mentions the tenderizer. For some, you can get through some of the potential toughness with a decent marinade. But with the tenderizer, I don't know what you do, Dave. Generally people have those big hammers that they go ahead and swing at their meat or to flatten out a piece of chicken for some chicken parm or what have you. But one of my buddies told me about this tool that he had, a meat tenderizer that had a little platform on the bottom and a handle on the top. And between the two was like maybe 24 little sharp blades that you could bang into the meat. It's proven to be really effective. Of course, people want a nice, tender, juicy piece of steak if you're so inclined and you're a meat eater. And that thing there is a miracle worker. That has turned in some pretty poor cuts into being much more palpable for those who like a tender piece of meat. But all that being said, even some people I know who are straight up in the middle class, maybe even can be regarded as being in the upper middle class, things like buying steaks has become a pretty big deal. You can go in and look at, for instance, a roast, and something that might have run you $30 or $40, now it's $70, it's $80. It's just remarkable. I don't know how quickly or briskly they're selling some of these products, but you would imagine fewer and fewer people are able to afford them, and consequently, maybe that's where the Dominions of the world are looking at price point as being the guiding principle for so many of their shoppers, and there you go. I'll add to it, I wonder what is happening and what kind of impact it's having, or how many people are participating in this month-long boycott of Loblaws, Dominion, shoppers, whatever the case may be. We'll hear from people who have been deemed to be so-called experts in the field, whether or not they are, I'll leave that up to you, about how these boycotts don't really have that much of an impact. Now, it's all about critical mass. If you had huge swaths of Canadians not supporting one business or another for whatever reason, then of course they'd have some sort of impact. But I mentioned, and this is not to poo-poo the boycott, if you're participating, good on you. I have not regularly been a Dominion shopper over the years, so it doesn't really impact me. But people seem to continue to go to that store. I fairly frequently have to drive right by the one down by Kitty Bitty, and I haven't seen any real decrease in the kind of the number of cars or number of vehicles out in the parking lot. So there you go. But that issue regarding Best Before, if you just look up something like, go to your Google bar and search out Second Harvest. Second Harvest is a group in the country that talks about food wastage and talks about food insecurity and all the rest of it. We throw away millions and millions and millions of tons of food every single year as Canadians. Some of it was probably guided by the whole Best Before date. I really do think the manufacturers, the suppliers, have kind of bamboozled us with the way they label things on a couple of fronts. The Best Before date. That's just a suggestion for the ultimate quality and the ultimate nutritional value. When more often than not, the Best Before date, the product is absolutely edible and perfectly fine well after the Best Before date. Now, for some things like dairy, I still do, follow along with the Best Before. Maybe that's just in my mind and is built in. But for many other things that Canadians have probably been throwing away. And or some people choose to put those products in the hands of the folks working in the food banks. But the product is fine. And then I'll add to it with the labeling business. I don't know how carefully I read every single label that I encounter in the grocery store, but, and this is a question we had for Gary Sands, who is the VP of Policy and Advocacy with the Independent Grocers. We had him on last week. And that's what grocery stores know. And the fact that they're on the front lines and they're taking all the heat when it comes to things regarding price. So whether it be you didn't like the beef you bought at one grocery store or another, but it's the fact that I don't know if we're ever going to see change in tune here. Price point is going to be hard to picture a world where they come back to earth. Number one reason, the number one contributing factor on that front for me is the fact that I'm paying the same or more for less. So let's just talk about a product that had 500 grams and now it's 400 grams, but I'm still paying the same price I did for 500, or I'm even paying more. That's not going to change. You know, the suppliers know that they've got a buying public that is maybe not that attentive to some of the labeling measures, and that concept of shrinkflation, that's going to be hard to put that genie back in the bottle, because that is going to be an industry-wide issue. If the suppliers know that people continue to buy their product at the same price or more for actually less content, then they've got that figured out. I mean, marketing and retail is an actual science. And when they see the scientific data associated with the shrinkflation, we're probably going to face that forever and a day. Okay. A couple of quick ones on the comments coming from Mr. Paddock. You can adjudicate them as you see fit. You can have your opinion, whatever it is, that they were misconstrued or they were clumsily offered or there's nothing to see here or they're inappropriate or whatever label it is you want to attach. Just a friendly reminder. If someone else says something on the program, I can't really defend what other people are saying. If it's something that comes out of my mouth that I'm going to be challenged on, 100%. That's just part of it. So if that's a concern that you've heard from whether it be Jerry Byrne or anybody else commenting on these things, it's them. And they're easily connected with. And so if you'd like to say anything either in support of or condemning of whatever comes out of anybody else's mouth, including Minister Byrne, you can probably send it to them. There's not much I can say or do about what others think and say and or feel. All right, let's take a break. Now, we had a call earlier from a truck driver named Rob talking about his concerns as a commercial truck driver with how the process works and whether or not they're actually going to be able to secure the berth they booked. They find out after they load. Darryl Mercer, who's the communications manager with Marine Atlantic, joins us right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the corporate communications manager with Marine Atlantic. That's Darryl Mercer. Good morning, Darryl. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Welcome back to the show.
Great to be here.
So right off the bat, we had a call from Rob, who's a commercial truck driver, complaining about the process for booking a cabin and whether or not you're actually going to have that cabin upon loading. So what is the process? How does it work?
So when we're referencing commercial drivers, it's a first-come, first-served process. So they don't make advance reservations unless you are making a premium booking in advance, and that's a different process. But for the vast majority of our commercial drivers, they come into the terminal property at the check-in booth. They find out what number they are in the queue, and ultimately will proceed to the parking lot. At that point in time, there's a number of cabins that are designated for commercial. We only have so many upgrades to single berth cabins, and then the rest are double berth, double occupancy cabins. A lot of the drivers actually prefer the double occupancy simply because it's a cheaper cost option. That's what they've used through the years. But since the pandemic, we made the option available that there could be upgrades available to a certain number of drivers. Unfortunately, we have approximately 35 cabins that are designated specifically for commercial customers that are not in the reservation system because we have them designated specifically for commercial. So those cabins are on a first-come, first-served basis. The first number of people that arrive in the commercial queue will have access to the upgrades. Those that don't want to use the upgrade process because it does cost more, then we'll move down the line. So there will be so many that will be confirmed before they get on the ship, and then the rest will be confirmed once they get on the ship. And that's based upon how many people are going to choose a double occupancy cabin, and then how many are left of that quota for the other drivers that want an upgrade.
So why would it be that a commercial truck driver simply couldn't book passage and a berth and have that confirmed upon the booking?
Well, that would be a commercial reservation system, and right now in the industry, there's no agreement amongst the commercial carriers of having that type of a system. We tried to implement that back in the 2009-2010 timeframe. It wasn't popular at that point in time, so the lobbying of the industry asked us to remove that system, return to the first-come, first-served process, and that's what we've done for the past number of years. Now, if there wasn't an interest in the industry to revisit a commercial reservation system, obviously that would be, you could book in advance, you could book your cabin, that type of thing. But right now, there hasn't been any interest expressed by all members of the industry. There's no agreement from a consensus perspective of moving forward with that type of system right now.
So you're talking about the industry being the truckers and or the ferry operators?
That would be the commercial carriers. There's various commercial carriers that represent different companies. Obviously, not everybody has the same outlook as to how they want to move forward with a crossing. Some would probably prefer a reservation system. Others don't. They find it a hindrance to their business model. So again, we're working with the industry, not just the Atlantic Provinces Trucking Association, but also the individual carriers to see what works best for them. And again, we've been through ongoing negotiations and consultations through the years. And again, we're trying to reflect what's in the best interest of the majority of the carriers. It's not working for everybody, but it's working for a lot. And obviously, when you look at making advanced reservations and having the ability to book a room on the ship, that's something that could be implemented in the future if it was something that the industry wanted.
You would think regarding safety and the requirement for their logbooks to be filled out, including how much time they spend in a bed, that it would be in their best interest. I'm not going to ask you to speak on behalf of them, but it sort of doesn't stand to reason that they wouldn't think that this would be in the best interest of the safety of their drivers and then the general motoring public.
Yeah, and ultimately, when it comes down to it, you have different business models for different carriers. Some carriers are bigger than others. Some are smaller. It's easier to make advanced bookings because you know well in advance that you're going to have certain loads, whereas other carriers are more last minute, so they can't necessarily make a booking. So there's a number of different reasons why they've made their decisions based upon models through the years. And again, it's an ongoing consultation. It's something that we've spoken to various carriers and their association representatives, going back many decades. So it's not something that's a decision that's been made in isolation. It's based upon what the majority of the industry representatives want at this point in time.
Fair enough. So that's that one. There has been a few stories floated my way, including one that made it out into the media at large, regarding pet-friendly cabins and whether or not there's enough of them, and some of the concerns that people have talked about, that they had one booked. I can't remember the lady's name at this moment in time. Had one booked, and then upon arrival didn't have one. The dog had to stay in the car or in a cage or something or other. Has anything changed based on some of these news stories regarding pet-friendly cabins?
So, unfortunately, when it comes down to, we look at all of these competing interests. So, the commercial industry, we have right now approximately 35 cabins that are designated for commercial use. Then we have a number of cabins, 8 right now on the Blue Petits, the Highlanders, designated for pet friendly. We get complaints every day from people right now who can't book a cabin for the summer season. So the fact is that while we have 96 cabins on the Blue Petits and the Highlanders right now, it's not enough to cover off all of the demand that we're seeing. The positive piece is that we have the Awasunu coming into service this summer, the new vessel. There's 146 cabins on that vessel. 40 passenger pods, which is a smaller version of a cabin at a cheaper price point. Not all of the amenities, but again, it's something that would satisfy the need to go on and have a private berth. So that's something new that we're introducing. And on that vessel, there's 31 pet-friendly cabins. So it's a very popular amenity, and we recognize that people really want to travel with their pets. So that's why we've increased the number of cabins available on the Awasunu. The challenge that we have is that the vessels are meant to carry commercial vehicles, passenger vehicles, and people. And the design of the vessels, we can't have cabins that are going to be hundreds and hundreds of cabins because it's not the way that the vessels are constructed. Now, on the Awasunu, we had an opportunity to put more cabins on board and look at some additional berths that could be available. So we moved forward in that direction. But when we look at the Blue Petits, the Highlanders, and Leif Erikson, we're limited in what is available. So we have 96 cabins available on the Blue Petits and the Highlanders. Recognizing that that's not enough with the demand that we're seeing, but we are trying to make it work as best as we can. And the pet-friendly cabins are very popular, Patty, and that's why it was only introduced a couple of years ago that we would see these pet-friendly cabins on board our vessels, and they have been very popular. So we are evaluating what improvements we can make on the Blue Petits and Highlanders, but again, we have learned that lesson and have increased the number of pet-friendly cabins on the Awasunu.
Yeah, when we talk about summer being peak tourism season, super strong numbers of Marine Atlantic last year. How about this year? What's the forecast look like?
Yeah, we're seeing increased reservations again for this summer. So coming out of the pandemic, it seems to have been a continual increase in traffic. So people are really wanting to travel again, and we're seeing those numbers. The only unfortunate part of it that I can put forward right now is that we don't have enough cabins to satisfy the demand that's there. Recognizing that a lot of people want access to the cabins, but with that demand, if you didn't book early, most of those cabins are already booked up. And that includes the Alasunu, which is going to be in the Argentia run this summer, even though that vessel is a brand new vessel, and it has more cabins and more passenger pods available for people to use. It's been a very popular amenity, and we're seeing that a lot of those cabins are already reserved for the entire summer.
Appreciate the time, Daryl. Thanks for the call.
Great. Thanks, Patty.
Appreciate your time. Take care. It's Daryl Mercer, Corporate Communications Manager, Marine Atlantic. Let's go to line number 1. Eileen, you're on the air.
Good morning. I have to say I love your show. You help so many people. I'm calling about the steaks at Dominion. Okay. I did some up Friday, cooked them Saturday. They were awesome. Okay. Very tender.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And now the only way I've heard you rub them with baking soda and leave it 5 minutes, rinse it off. That's the only thing I did. Another thing, you were saying something about a friend of yours had a thing like with picks. I'll say picks. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, they're little sharp blades, a meat tenderizer. Yeah, he put me onto it. I got one, and boy, I tell you what, it's a magical tool.
And where did you get it?
I bought it off Amazon. That's where he sent me a link. That's where he got his. So I just quite simply actually, my wife did it for me. My wife ordered it from Amazon, but I think you could probably buy them just about anywhere.
So what am I looking for?
So if you even ask whatever retailer about a meat tenderizer, the one that I have, I'll try to describe it, what it looks like. It's got a little platform on the bottom and a handle on the top, and between the two there's like a couple of dozen of really sharp blades. So when I push down on the handle, the blades go through the bottom platform and into the meat, opening up the meat for the purpose of tenderizing. And it's really simple to do. It doesn't take a big effort. You can either just lay it down and push gently and or just give it a good bang down onto the meat. But I would imagine you'll be able to get them just about anywhere.
Okay.
And it was inexpensive. This thing was like $9.
Oh, my heavens, yeah. I'm going to have one if I can find it.
There you go, Eileen. Appreciate the time as a first-time caller. Stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Before we run out of time, I'll get this out to for Gary. His friend lost a dog while taking it for a ride up in the woods. It's a 1.5-year-old dark brown pit bull lost in the area of Paradise Lake Road and Lofts Lake. This is a forest access road south of Grant Falls, Windsor. The dog's name is Africa. It's a rescue dog. If you have seen that dog and have any information leading to the recovery of the dog, there is a reward. So call this number if you've seen this dog, 709-486-7059. That's 709-486-7059. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands who support the program. And we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.